but even beyond the website industry, just Google in general, man, we got to talk because like I don't know about you, but like my go-to now is just I don't Google shit anymore. Like I just chat GPT it. There's
I use Perplexity a lot. I mean,
so
I use Perplexity. I don't know. It just depends on it. But for like stuff I used to use for like web search, like information, I mostly I use Perplexity. I like the products. I don't know
it's
why.
I mean like Google, they like we know that their like entire business model is, based on basically not giving people exactly what they want. Right. Let's just face it, right? Like, yeah, they
Yeah,
did
yeah,
an awesome job like organizing the world's information. Like, kudos. Like, seriously, one
yeah.
of the best companies ever. Let's not fucking kid ourselves. But at some point along the line, Don't Be Evil went away, and like, it just became like, I mean, they're still fundamentally a 10 blue links company with three sponsored links that turned into four
I
and then
mean,
five and then,
it's
but
gonna be
like
fascinating to as like a business case study because this is like the ultimate of
disruption.
yeah, I'd like to try to change something that has worked so like not has worked, but has been possibly the best business model it's been
Ever.
it is a money printing machine.
And
Like
it still is.
I joke
It
that
still is.
they were like we're not offering guidance when they went public because we think that that prioritizes short term blah blah blah.
Did they say that?
No, no, they didn't offer guidance because they still hit the numbers all the time and
Oh,
exceeded. Because all they had to do was they would just put another ad on the methylzima like page or something. It's like they could just turn the dial and produce more money if they needed to or wanted to. So
I mean, this
I
is
think it'll be interesting.
like,
It'll be interesting with like Waymo and things like if this ends up being kind of good because they were given a sort of unique opportunity of like you've got a money printing machine, you're incredibly ambitious, and
yeah,
what are you going to do? Fine, YouTube, they bought YouTube and they did amazing things with it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
um it'll be interesting to see if some of their big bets, because it looked like for a while, like, that they were kind of squandering this unbelievable advantage.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. Like they were able to take more risks and just fail on basically every like side project ever that they've ever touched.
They were like the ultimate trust fund kid. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. Just in some New York loft, like painting, like hanging from a ceiling, just throwing stuff at the wall. I mean, okay, so now like reality's kind of like crashed down. They had their like come to Jesus existential crisis moment, like when ChatGPT launched, and but now they've got like their own, they're using AI. Like Notebook LM is pretty cool. Like it feels very beta, but like it does things that like Perplexity, well at the time, wasn't kind of like doing that well, and definitely that ChatGPT wasn't doing, but. I mean, the bigger question here is just like what the hell are they going to do going forward? Because I mean, even like my mother-in-law like just mentioned the other day, like, oh, I was chat GPTing something, blah, blah, blah. And like this is the woman who used to be like, oh, I Googled this or I Googled that. And it's like, she's pushing 80. And I'm just like, wow, like, that it's becoming the new verb, right? ChatGPT is, right? Like, am I wrong? Like that's going to be the new like way people like just, access information. Am I wrong?
yeah, I mean, I think it likely is. I mean, we search to get answers, not to get links, right? So, but at the same time, Google, again, they're still a trust fund kid. They have every advantage possible. They're like the United States. Like we can like screw up so much stuff.
Yeah.
We can do everything. Right? We are still gonna win because of
Yeah.
geography, because of the dollar, because of the
Yeah.
military. We're like we've got a big margin for error. Belgium cannot
Yeah.
screw things up as much as
Yeah.
we.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great metaphor.
So
I
I think
totally
I think
agree.
Google has so many advantages, and so I think while the search experience right now is kind of a chaotic mess,
Yeah.
You know, like, even their labeling is really weird. Like they're like sticking sponsored links, I noticed, like in the middle of results, and it's just unclear
I've
what is what.
noticed that. That is so like they're definitely freaking out. Like PMs over there are just like testing like crazy, just at grasping at straws for anything that looks like, a gain in something. But I don't know what they're. I mean, I don't know how you can like. They can definitely screw up. They can definitely like your U.S. metaphor is perfect. But I mean, they literally, like you said, they built the biggest, best business of all time, basically. Money, the biggest money printing machine ever. None of this has really affected their numbers at all. Like, I mean, there's like the line is like starting to go down just like the tiniest little bit. And it's like, that's the effect this is all having, right? Like, you forget like just how much
And I mean, they have such distribution lock-in, and these cases that are coming out, splitting off Chrome is that could be really tough, because but then again, if you like split off Chrome, what is Chrome gonna cut a deal with Perplexity? Are they gonna say you can't have a deal with? So I mean that's to me like they have so many different advantages across the board, but from a product perspective, they've got a product problem. They have competition where they never had competition
Yeah,
before.
that's
And
it.
they're only going to get more competition. Meta is sticking its own like version of search all over its platforms. I mean, maybe now is the time that Apple just builds its own like search engine,
What,
because
what, what, what are you seeing on the front lines of like licensing content, right? Because like I know you know that world really well, and
yeah.
none of this stuff. I mean, it's so frustrating when you type something into an
Oh,
LLM and it's like, oh, we can't retrieve that, and it's like, oh man, is this gonna be another gated community thing, right? Like,
sorry, I'm
so
trying to
like,
get this thing stuff. Go on.
yeah, so like, what are you kind of seeing on like the front lines of like the licensing ecosystem and like what's happening with like I mean, because the funny thing to me is that like the one of the most standard protocols for the web, which was like the robots.txt, right? Which like Google basically created and like followed. And like, OpenAI comes in and they're like, yeah, that's not like an actual law that exists in the world or the country. We don't follow that. We're just not
It
going to.
was. Yeah, no, I mean, well, Google is not cutting deals yet. Like, I mean, I think just starting that precedent is probably something they don't want to do. But look, ultimately, they are the arbiter. They're the central node of the open web, and if the open web is going to continue in some way, shape, or form, Google is going to have to address a severe misalignment of incentives. Its incentives no longer are really to send traffic to websites. If
Yeah,
they can provide the answer, assuming the AI overviews become like, really good, and I don't have any reason to think they won't, right? You know,
yeah,
they've they've created a problem with their publishing partners. I mean, that was why it was good to start from scratch for someone like Perplexity or ChatGPT,
yeah,
because they have built a very not complex, I mean, it's a little bit complex, sort of web of entanglements that is imperfect, but that Google was saying, hey, we'll send you traffic, we're gonna scrape your site,
yeah,
we're gonna and you're going to monetize the traffic, and you're going to use Google products to monetize your traffic. So we're going
yeah.
to get it. Like
Let's let.
we're not Mother Teresa's orphanage here. Like you're gonna give us a piece. Otherwise, why are we sending traffic?
Well, let's talk
Um,
traffic for a minute because traffic basically everyone's trying to get out of the traffic game now, right? Like you know it, I know it. I mean,
yeah.
let's not, I don't want to, be hyperbolic about things, but I know that you've talked to a lot of folks with media companies with a lot of traffic and like there's no way they're not freaking out. Like I'm seeing it, you're seeing it. I
Mhm.
on a personal level, I'm actually really glad like my company like we never played the traffic game to a degree that we never fell into that traffic trap where we just are like a beast that needs eyeballs and needs the clicks and needs a stupid ads running all over the site and like we just never like really got into that world. Not because I knew it was going to about to fall apart 2 3 years later, but because it just always felt like so. This is just better distribution than kind of relying on Google. I don't like relying on on Google for anything. But back to traffic for a bit. So I mean, like, what are you kind of seeing like in terms of, like the bigger players and like how they're thinking about traffic declines right now?
I mean, everyone's just trying to diversify, right? I mean, to me, all the AI stuff is just an acceleration, right? I mean, the sort of mass scale traffic era didn't pan out anyway. Like that traffic didn't turn out
Did
to
for
be
a
that.
while. I mean, 2010 to 2015, you could make a lot off of affiliate links and like, I mean, this.
Yeah, I mean, all the mattress sites and whatnot. But for the biggest publishers, you know, that kind of arbitrage game, it's over. And so, yeah, they're going to have to rebuild their businesses, continue to operate. It's like any business. You got to regularly continue to operate your existing business and then build a new one.
But that's
Um,
such a I mean, that's such a big undertaking. It's not like a small, like,
yeah.
hey guys, production in China's, down. We got to move things to Taiwan or something. I mean, this is like, these are huge shifts. I see companies out there that are freaking out trying to get their mailing lists built up, and I'm like, yeah, welcome to the email world. I told you it was better, wink wink. But like at the same time, like, I mean, these aren't small undertakings, like it's just, we can't treat it like it's some foregone conclusion it'll just work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, a lot of people won't make it, right? They won't make that transition, but I guess the positive view is that's just creative destruction. And also like nobody has like a right to have a media business. And look, I have a lot of I want there to be a sustainable and high quality, media ecosystem. At the same time, I feel very well served, like from a media perspective. Like I have a lot. Like I'm not like it's not like something where I'm like, oh geez, I wish I had, it's like, no, I mean it ends up being fine. And I think unfortunately a lot of a lot of these brands don't really have an economic purpose anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and so, or their economic purpose is much smaller than what their business, was because they did all these things to puff up their business, and um, I think that's why the future for these companies is probably getting smaller. I mean, I
It
worry
has to
about that
be.
in my own business, right? Like a lot of people, my partners, pay me in order to connect with, a lot of these large publishers. If those large publishers become smaller, then the amount of money that they will pay to for software will go get smaller, and therefore the amount of money I get paid will get smaller. So yes, I'm very interested in these companies growing. At the same time, I think the reality is for most of them that I don't see I don't see a likely scenario where a lot of these companies are bigger in 5 years than now.
You
Like,
call
and
this
I think
the
that's
you,
just the
you call this
reality.
the less is more era, right? I've heard you.
Yeah, doing
Yeah.
more with less, and it can be smaller, but like very profitable. And I think we all see that out there. I mean, I call this like the information space. There's so much content being created, um, and some of it is garbage, but not all of it. Like,
Well, some of it's garbage, but let's talk about the content that's being created that is just 90% AI with like 10% human kind of like fact checking and
oh yeah,
so I mean there's so much news that doesn't need a human anymore. Like, and I know this is so cliche at this point, but it is actually fascinating. It's true. Like it, you don't.
well, a lot of news is, and a lot of what news publishers did was really summarization,
Yeah.
and AI has already proven that it is really good already at summarization,
Yeah.
and it's also good at versioning. And a lot of like advertising, the advertising industry is just creating different versions of,
Yeah.
of some idea or concept.
Yeah.
And I think, this is a time of reckoning about like, well, what business are you truly in? Like,
What reason do we have to exist? What
right.
do like, why are you there? Like, I mean, look, I think this is one of those technologies that it wasn't like it was actually broken before, but the new solution is clearly better. Or maybe I should second guess my assumption on the broken part. Like, for example, my question for you would be, do you think that SEO spam was actually truly problematic and people were getting frustrated with Google search? And then when AI kind of ChatGPT kind of came along, everyone's like, "Oh, this is way better. Fuck you, Google. Ha ha ha. You suck. This is awesome. There's no ads. There's no SEO spam. Blah blah blah." Or was actually no, things were working pretty well. Google was basically good. People were basically happy. This is just a case of this something that's even better and ad free. Like, where do you kind of land on that like spectrum?
Yeah, well, the ad-free stuff doesn't last. They're already
It
starting
doesn't
on
last. That's right. Yeah.
and they'll have the same pressures these to monetize at as high of a rate, and those things change. Um,
What's their value
yeah,
now?
the
$100
SEO
million
the SEO
dollars?
spam
Like,
was
yeah,
the
yeah.
SEO spam was look, and also Google has access to all the data, right? Like I truly believe for as many flaws as Google has, they know, and not just from gut, that the search results pages had gotten insane. And there was too much junk in there. They'd always sort of turned a blind eye to a certain amount of junk. But this, you they're not serving their users, and it's not in their short or long-term interests when the search result pages are a mess. I mean, think about the deal they did with Reddit. Well, I mean, they saw all the data. So many people were searching for things with Reddit
Plus
on the
Reddit,
internet
right? Yeah,
first.
I was one
That
of them. Yeah,
that that is, if I was sitting at Google, like, it doesn't take being a rocket scientist at Google to be like, oh, we got a problem. We
yeah.
got a problem. Because if people are doing that, they're basically saying your product sucks. And so my assumption is that why that is because people are finding the search results pages less useful.
Is is uh is page rank fundamentally flawed, right? Like the idea that the more inbound links basically that a site has and the power of those inbound links dictate the power of the site in question. Like that's a pretty fundamental protocol for
Yeah, but I
like
think
the
they
web.
kind of
Like,
moved away. They've moved away from PageRank. I mean, it's one of like many factors that
but
they
they've moved away. But Brian, you still got like, you type in like, Olympics, like your example you always use of like, Olympics start time or something, and it's like the Atlantic comes up,
yeah.
as a result, or like every site in the world's just chasing these like,
That's ARB. I mean, that to me is just straight ARB. And like a lot of the internet is ARB. And there's arbitrage never fully goes away. But you better be ready to close up shop. If you're in the arbitrage game, I mean, you better be ready to close things down at a moment's notice, because its role is to expose, inefficiencies in markets. Like, arbitrage does not last forever. And
yeah,
so, trying to be the what time, the rank on what times the Super Bowl start, the famous Huffington Post example, you know, obviously no, that's not going to continue. Google's just going to tell you it starts at whatever, 6 p.m.
yeah, yeah.
So that's not serving anyone's interests, really. I mean, it was just a lot of, I don't know, a lot of like digital media, and none of this is totally new because a lot of these tricks happened in analog media, was, these kind of like schlocky hacks in order to make the numbers work.
Totally. Well, that's what created SEO spam, right? Is just, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people that are basically trying to make the experience worse for their own benefit. I think Google did a great job for a long time of actually like, it could have been a lot worse. As bad as some results were, and as frustrating as it was to Google a lot of things, 3 years ago, like it actually could have been like an even worse experience. I do want to give Google credit for that, but um, I mean,
I think the problem for publishers is Google has just become incredibly unreliable as it tries to fix this problem. And it is sort of lurching in different directions. And it's unclear why some are winners, some are losers. It's not like everyone's getting crushed. I mean, you go through Dotdash Meredith's uh, their financial filings, and they're doing fine, right? I would think, of all the companies that would be really exposed, they would be extremely exposed. But they're able to make it. They diversified their traffic over years. I think search is now like half their traffic, whereas the legacy Dotdash business, or even about.com business, was like entirely search. And I think every publisher is going to have to undertake that kind of efforts, because something like Forbes is like to me, like the poster child for this. They always have. I mean, there's Forbes gets a lot of grief. I think the opposite side is you could give Forbes a lot of credit over the years, because they're always responsive to market signals. They weren't like sentimental about printing a magazine, or like they were not sentimental at all. And but look, they hooked into affiliate with this Forbes marketplace that they own, I guess, about half of, a little less than half of. And look, Google is adjudicating. Google always they hid behind the algorithm, that the algorithm does what the algorithm, like, as if like they had no control over the algorithm, like they were Frankenstein. And now they're taking manual actions, and they're making basically editorial decisions. I mean, for years, Google refused to say that it was a media company. And now they're making just straight up editorial decisions. They're
Mm.
saying, are these people on your staff full time? I mean, it's like, really? Like, you're now like getting into the employment arrangements. I mean, to me, it's
Wow.
just a symbol um, of how little control publishers have over their businesses, because they, for the most part, do not control a large part of their distribution. If you don't control your distribution, you're always going to be, someone's cabana boy.
I mean, that's it, and that's why email, it's kind of undefeated, man. The thing is, like, it's not totally.
Although email, it's like, I don't know. Like, I look at it, it's like, okay, I'm using some AI email tool, Shortwave. It's not great, but it's
Yeah.
fine. Um, yeah, they're gonna summarize all the newsletters. They're gonna
So oh man, that's a great topic.
everything gets ruined. At the end of the day, like anything that works in digital media, everyone goes, it floods it, and then makes it like impossible.
But email is well, it's funny because like everyone, including me, is fond of saying like, email's protected, like it's you own your list in a way you don't with social media, and certainly don't with Google distribution if you're a content site and all that. But the thing is, that's not quite true, because 50% of all email addresses are like Gmail, right? Apple's a layer on top of all of that. Both companies like have the ability to manage your inbox, and like you said, like they have been for a while, but also just like with AI now, AI summaries and all that, like, so it's
I
not
mean,
it's a better
yeah,
option, but it's not, you're
yeah,
not.
it's like the least worst option. I mean, like I covered direct marketing at one point early in my career, and it was when email marketing, in quotes, was like very popular. And getting into the email world, I was like, a lot of these people are based in Hollywood, Florida, and stuff. It's because they had one foot out the door, and they knew that, like, in Florida, you could at least keep your house if someone sues you.
Oh my gosh.
Because they were, again, it's just the incentives are always to to push it as far as possible. I mean, they used to do this thing. It was like one bite of the apple. There's all these like list brokers out there, because again, it was like just an outgrowth of the offline direct marketing world. Direct mail, I mean, come on, like, your information gets sold like nonstop. I remember when I first moved to New York, I signed up for some God's Love We Deliver charity race. And it's like a charity that was founded to like bring meals to like homebound AIDS patients. And man, I just moved to New York. they sold my email address to everybody, or my email address, my physical address, to everybody under the sun. So if the charity is doing it, everybody's doing it.
I'm actually thinking of opening up a direct mail like part of our business just because like it's been so neglected for so long and like I'll bet you like
I looked
I
at
gotta
my
think about it.
mail the other day when we moved to Florida. I was like, I get some like now it's like not that it's funny because like everything becomes polluted, but now like it's not that much stuff in my mailbox. Like I never
Right. That's
I
it.
I don't go to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, there's some and because when you buy a place, they
Yeah.
sell your information to
Oh
everybody.
yeah. You absolutely. Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, I'm like, oh,
Totally.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
sliding door, repair. And I'm like, well, I am gonna need,
Man, I'm all about the underdiscovered, underrated. Like I'm looking at like radio as an option lately, right? Just old school radio.
Okay.
Like, rates are cheap. I mean, it's you get people's attention on like really long drives. Like it's like conventional wisdom's like nobody listens to the radio. It's like, less people do, but like those that do listen
Yeah.
for a lot longer. They're a lot more loyal. They have more time to think about what you're saying. Like this just it's a whole nother discussion, I guess. But um yeah, no, I mean, look, I think that the main point is that like, yeah, this is I don't think there's ever been a bigger, you tell me, man, you've been in the media game a lot longer, but
Yeah.
like I don't think there's ever been like a moment like this before in media.
No, it's pretty existential.
Yeah.
Because the Facebook stuff, Facebook was a blip. At the end of the day, it came and it was good for like a while, but like anyone who looked at their analytics knew that it was bullshit, you know. Google
Yeah.
traffic was not bullshit, you know.
But
It
it was
was
bullshit for so long. It was
but it wasn't like total like, you know what I mean? Like Facebook, like, when you get traffic from Facebook, like people would like bounce like immediately. Like it was terrible traffic. I can't imagine anyone who was looking at their analytics fooled themselves into thinking like that this is like real. Um, and with the 3-second video views and stuff, it was always kind of a hack to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
But
What is
Google has been, Google is the nerve center of the internet, and they control distribution, they control monetization, and anytime to give them like credit, they're trying to change their business. You
yeah,
could see, I mean, why? Like they're doing great. What is their like, what's their market cap? Like 2 trillion, 3 trillion? I don't even know. Like I yeah, maybe don't do anything, but they clearly understand that they have like a long-term challenge. And so I think the problem when you are so integral to just about everyone's business that anytime you make a change, you're going to trample a lot of people. There's a lot of collateral damage to anything that Google does. Google can basically eradicate um, a large number of publishing businesses overnight.
yeah, yeah.
And that's just a reality. I think um, that's what governments see really is I'm not going to do the monopoly test, but like their position is so dominant that most of these publishers are completely dependent on them.
So what I
But
mean,
the reality is it's not going to zero.
no, of
So
course. I mean, like you said, like your American metaphor at the beginning was perfect. Look, I'm not worried about Google at all. I'm worried about like the I'm not even worried. I'm just thinking about like the publishing industry and how it navigates kind of, going forward. I mean, like one big question I have for you, probably the last one too.
okay, let's just play this out. A lot of people go out of business.
Sure. Yeah.
Is this something where we have like a worse like as consumers that like we're left in like 5 years and we're like, God damn it, we should have done something. We should have protested. Because when Google makes changes, I do not see any protests taking place in
Oh
Miami.
no. Well, what do you mean by protest? Dude, there's a lot of people that spout off and
No, no,
complain
no, they're
for
business, but
everybody.
I'm just saying regular freaking
Oh, no
people.
one cares.
Well,
No, yeah,
nobody
no.
cares. So
No, no
like I
one
don't understand like you don't have the right to like have a media business. And Um, Look, a lot of people left themselves overly exposed to Google. It was always the most
Oh,
reliable algorithm, and now it's not reliable. So fix your
yeah.
business. I don't
Yeah.
know.
What is last question would be like, what does um sponsorship look like in the AI world? Like what does, we talked about at the beginning, like, like yeah, like ads are coming, right? To Perplexity and to
Oh,
ChatGPT, and like what does that actually look like? Is it more the same, right? Is it just like something completely different?
no, it is kind of interesting because I just saw like on Perplexity the other day, it's running ads from like Whole Foods. And like, look, nothing is new. They're going to go fully native and whatnot. And so it's like, how can Whole Foods make me eat like healthy or something like that? I was like searching what foods I could eat
Wow.
with my illness. But
Yeah.
so I'm still doing research stuff on. So like I was like, oh, I'll go to these ads. And yeah, I mean, they're doing them. They're basically like AI summaries, and I'm sure have like a bit of like a little bit more of a human touch. They'll make them native to the experience, and I don't know whether they work as well. I don't know. Like, I mean, the Whole Foods ones that I saw, like, one was just it was just a TV commercial that like from YouTube, basically
Mm,
at the end of the Um,
yeah.
so there'll be like hacks like that. And these things always start off as like extremely native and then they become more like kind of more like regular
Yeah.
ads. Like Twitter originally was the ads were not ads. They were promoted tweets. It had to be a real tweet on the platform for it to
That's
then be
right.
promoted. And
Yes,
that
that's right.
like that went away,
Yeah.
because
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like everyone always talks about like how Google's notification to the user that it was an ad, it used to be so big, and then over the years it got like smaller, and then like more like far away corner, and then like it was like now then it was just like a tiny little like gradient of like color like behind the actual ad, and but I always thought that wasn't a big deal because like I always thought that Google did a pretty good job of like delivering ads based on your intent. So if like I'm looking for like a plumber, in Scottsdale, like I know I'm gonna see a bunch of ads, but it didn't feel like it was like a bait and switch or anything. It was like that's what I searched for. Literally, like
Yeah, I mean, look,
to
like
me.
the original Google system was great, right? Like it didn't matter if you had the most money because it was based on click-through rate
Right,
and bid. And so the idea was it was fully democratized and that if you had something that was incredibly relevant to that search, you
right.
could end up getting higher in the queue just on the fact that you were perceived to be much more relevant than
And
someone
that
else
system
paying a
took,
lot of money.
5 years of constant work to build and refine and get to a point where like, yeah, like I think the end result was good, So I mean, yeah, like you're already seeing some janky kind of ads, with this new paradigm, right? Like it might be kind of bad for a while until the companies kind of like learn to catch up. But like,
Yeah, I mean, look, building ad systems is pretty complicated, and it's not as easy, I think, as a lot of people think. I mean, it helps when you have like, so many people using your product, but I mean, I think they'll end up, figuring it out. Ads always win. People don't like they are not going to pay for like a million different things, and so, ads are going to have to be they're going to have to be absolutely part of the experience for sure.
yeah. Yeah, no, it is funny because like Google isn't fundam like there's two Googles, right, in terms of search. Like there's the ad game and then there's the actual search team, right? Like, and it's like that most things that you Google don't need to be brought to a web page. Like they just don't. And Google knows that. And like for years they've been like, I mean something like 50% of searches on mobile don't go to a
Yeah.
site.
Yeah.
It's like
Zero click.
the answer is just in the browser. It's not
Yeah.
even like, I mean, half the
And
time
the
now,
zero click searches are going up.
when you
They've
call it
kept rising.
zero click searches,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They've
Oh,
kept
they do,
going
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, I think that's where these antitrust cases are really interesting. Like if Google's forced to sell off all its ad tech, well, then it really has limited incentives to send, if it's not a great user experience and it's not in the interest of the user, they have limited incentives to send free traffic to publishers. I mean, again, it's not a charity. So, they've gone away from the don't be evil stuff. And that seems to be the vibe now, right now. So yeah, I mean, they're gonna have fewer incentives and like it's a better user experience. Man, when I was covering early search, like Ask Jeeves had the right idea. They just couldn't execute on it because they didn't have AI. It's like why search? Like why not just get the answer? Let Jeeves tell you the answer. Yeah, that's what a lot of people want. I think there's still a place for publishers who have real authority that people will trust their reviews. But the reality is a lot of these affiliate schemes were schemes, and they were basically arbitrage from SEO.
Let's
Um,
real quick. I want to get your take on authority. This will be the last question, I promise, man. Even though I
okay.
know you and I can chat for ages, but like authority is such a loaded term, right? Because authority used to be based on page rank, right? Like that was a site's authority and stuff. But like you look at like Google results today, right? And it's like the authority sites, it might be the Atlantic, it might be Time. They're not actually that big of authorities anymore for like a large part of the population. Like you look at like the social media like reach and presence of a lot of these like authority
Yeah.
news sites, and they're like a tenth of what like the average Joe Rogan like post gets. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Well, I think they see that. I mean, that's why the Reddit deal is so interesting, and how Reddit has become a big winner out of this. I think they see the data, right? Like this is all part of the picture of legacy media is in terminal decline at the end of the day. I don't I don't think that that's even controversial now, is it? Like, if you just look around, like, oh, the Washington Post just whacked 100 on the business side
I mean,
today. Like,
the best example of that is Elon Musk, the guy who like owns like one of the biggest still like media platforms in the world, basically said that. Like he's like, yeah, like you are the media now. And like everyone kind of
yeah,
knew that already. Like, there is no the media anymore. It's just
I
us.
think it's kind of more interesting. I think about this with like what I do. It's like I want to get into way deeper with these like niche like creators and like like I was like the guy CoffeeZilla.
Yeah.
He does these like scam, like he exposes scams like on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even that like honey controversy
Oh,
and
that
like,
honey stuff. I wish we had time to talk about that. That is the most long overdue bullshit. Now
some
they're getting
Dutch
sued.
guy,
Oh
some
yeah.
Dutch guy did that. It wasn't the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. And it had like something like 20 million views in the first two
Yeah.
days. And I'm like,
So for
whoa,
all
this
the
is
like
a big
gnashing of teeth when it comes to the decline of legacy media, who's going to expose malfeasance? I don't know. Like
everybody.
I would not bet against when the
Yeah.
H1B exploded on X. Man, everyone, was it perfect? No, but everyone was combing through H1B database
Yeah.
with like who, and like that makes me think like I don't know if I would bet against like everyone versus
Right.
like a few people who, I guess if it's the New York Times, they went to like Harvard, but every other place is Wesleyan. Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems to me like I think a lot of people in the media, legacy media industry, like assume that this kind of scruffy, what had been a very scruffier side becomes that they will not become just as good at what they do. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I don't know, like to me that's like inevitable. And it doesn't mean that like legacy media goes away. It's
Well, it
just
never,
one node of a larger system.
but like, I mean, it is fascinating how mm, like I mean you think about like the 50s 60s, like the heyday, the beginning of the Hearst empire, and like just how powerful media was. I mean, they basically like they were the advertising monopoly for a long time, and they survived on you know for a very long time on just the virtue of like being kind of like the the first like mega like media empires through the 2000s and 2010s. I think there was this sense with like the large media organizations that like they will just always, it was a foregone conclusion that like they will just always be powerful. And like it did not take long for that to change. Like I mean, if you think about like, like most of their existence was a rousing success. It's only like 15 years of like just like constant, just getting slapped in the face year after year with
But
reality.
also like mass media is like not, it has not been with us forever. Like and it was mostly, rose from technological changes that allowed mass media to be possible. Well, when the cost of distribution goes to near zero, when the cost of content creation is going to go to near zero, like there's going to be a lot more competition. So, I mean, I want there to be a thriving, media ecosystem. But I think the reality is the growth of independent and alternative media will come at the expense of these legacy mass media organizations.
And there's really not much like point even arguing that. I think I think the mass media organizations thought that they were going to survive based on the fact that they were kind of the arbiters of fact checking. And now it's like you got like community notes. Like even just this morning, like Zuck's like talking about Threads is going to do community notes. I'm like, great, like that's literally the best feature from Twitter X like ever. Like,
Yeah.
so maybe
I
that's
got,
just the future. Maybe it's just
Elon
community
Musk,
notes
I
up
will
and
just
down the chain, man. I don't know. Like, it's
I
great.
early on praised community notes
Yeah,
on, I think it was still Twitter then, that
yeah,
like for all the changes at this place, I'm like,
yeah,
community notes is like revolutionary. And
yeah.
Elon Musk replied to me. That's why I got one Elon Musk reply.
That's good. That's awesome, man. All right.